Welcome to Commander Pop Culture, a place to gather magical information with some laughs, might I add. Okay, folks, so today I'm going to be building Talion the Kindly Lord. I haven't built a traditional control deck in a very long time. It's one of those decks where you really get to flex the basics of your deck building. Unfortunately, it comes at the expense of your opponents.
Harassment! I see harassment!
Or maybe you'd like to see some excessive force.
Because you're going to make them absolutely miserable when you play control decks. Talion is really awesome because on ETB you choose a number 1 through 10. Basically, whenever someone casts a spell with mana value, or it's a creature with a toughness power equal to that number, that player loses 2 life and you draw a card. It's a bit of like a slug and a card advantage engine. Premier Command Zone. I'm not sure what gender Talion is. It's androgynous kind of a creature, but we're gonna call him a he. He's just a giant, I guess, thorn in people's side. And I'm going to do this a little bit differently. Normally I would do like the EDH rec thing and the Card Kingdom thing, and I'd go through search engines and what have you. Since control decks, they don't really have too much of a theme. All you do in a traditional control deck is you take the pieces that you normally have and amplify their counts. What do I mean by that? You know how in the previous videos you should have 12 removal spells and 12 carded ramp, and you should have 2 to 3 board wipes. Well, basically there is no synergy in a traditional control deck. Instead, you just amplify those counts and you just get in for chip damage until your opponents die and they have nothing to work with. Instead of picking cards and talking about them, I just picked out 140 cards and I'm just going to make cuts and whittle things down, and then we'll look at everything and I'll talk about why it's in here. A little bit of a unique way of like doing a deck building process. What I've also noticed with my picks is that these cards had their time in the sun back in the day and were very expensive when they first came out, and now they're very cheap. So we get to see things that people normally haven't played in years, especially in a control deck. I'm pretty excited to try this out. Let's organize this actually by CMC. Deluge lets you exile an instant or sorcery from a graveyard and copy it 3 times. When I picked this card out, I was imagining some brutal things that I could possibly do with it, but now that I'm thinking about it, most of the instants and sorceries I'm playing on a budget is relatively fair. I guess I could exile someone else's, but only want to play with knowledge that I have, which is what's in my deck. So maybe Memnonic can go. But I do have to make 40 cuts, so that's a good start. This is an oldie and a goodie. Avatar of Woe. Another 6/5 body. Avatar of Woe is by far the best of the avatars in terms of cost reduction, because getting 10 total creatures into 3 of your opponent's graveyards is really easy. And then it has an unconditional destroy target creature. It also has fear, so it's evasive.
Quickly established an effectiveness and popularity within the community.
This card is everything you want, and it's dirt cheap to buy. I hardly see people play Avatar Woe anymore, but it makes a heck of a lot of sense in this deck. Unfortunately, I don't have the resilience, which is, it doesn't survive a whole lot of like interaction. People can only do so much to interact with you, and if you just keep dropping bomb after bomb after bomb, eventually something's going to stick. Having something that's like a bit of an engine that also interacts with your opponents is also desirable. And as a whole, this is another like blast from the past kind of a control card. Whenever someone casts a non-creature spell, you draw. You have no max hand size, but this card is a lot more resilient. It can't be countered, and you could discard 3 cards, exile it, and bring it back to play on the end step. So if people try to do a board wipe, you'll have a 7/7 after the dust settles, or if someone tries to remove it with a removal spell, you'll be drawing so much off of Nezahal and just drawing in general that you should have a pretty thick grip to afford to discard cards whenever you want to. I'm excited to play Nezahal. Haven't played it in a long time. Blatant Thievery. I don't know if I need this anymore because I'm going to be taking away so much from my opponents anyways. Stealing people's stuff is really backbreaking though, because it forces people to use their removal on their own pieces. That definitely doesn't feel good. I think I'm going to be keeping the board so empty that I'll be forced to just steal people's lands with this, so maybe I cut this. I love the Gear Hulks. This kind of reminds me of why interaction on sticks are really powerful. Not only do you interact with your opponent's board, but now they have a a threatening attacker to deal with also. And after the ETB trigger, the damage is already done. You know what I mean? So it doesn't feel good to be using removal on vanilla bodies, but basically that's what the Gear Hulks do to people. The Torrential one lets you recast a target instant or sorcery from your graveyard without paying its cost. And then the Noxious Gear Hulk destroys something, and then you gain life equal to its toughness. I like peppering in life gain into control decks because you're going to be pissing people off so freaking much that you're going to be priority number one for your opponents and be arch enemy really quick. Not only are you gaining life off this, but you're also creating a body that can block for you. You're also taking away something from your opponent. It just does everything that you want it to do. Massacre Worm, it's a unique board wipe that also drains your opponents. What I've been noticing in budget leagues is that there's just rashes of token decks. I think it's because you could build really powerful ones for dirt cheap pretty consistently. This is a good punishment for those types of players that I keep running into. Flood of Tears, another mass board wipe spell, only if I return 4 more permanents of my own, I get to cast something for free. Hopefully it's my commander, and then people have to deal with playing their stuff into my commander again. I think when I play Talion, it's always going to be on 2, by the way. 2 just seems to be the most common value on people's decks. Like, every time I build a deck, my common value is 2. So I just assume that is for everybody else. And 2 seems to be like a good middle number for power and toughness of creatures as well. Curtain's Call, I love it because it hits 2 things at instant speed. Blood in the Snow. This is a board wipe that also gets Talion back from my graveyard. Keeps pissing people off. I like board wipes that give me the chance to recast Talion or re-puts Talion back into play. Witch King of Agmar punishes people for hitting me. It's a 5/3 with flying. It also is resilient because I give it indestructible till end of turn. What's not to love? Gives you a temptation trigger, so I can make something evasive with the ring. I like that. Tameo lets me draw cards and taps things down indefinitely. I kind of want Planeswalkers since I'm going to be messing with the board a lot, and this unfortunately gets scooped up by my bounce spells, but doesn't get affected by my destruction spells. The dream is to get that emblem and make it so I could return cards to my hand after I cast them. The card advantage package isn't that bad either. Grey Merchant, this is just a classic. I put a body into play, gain a ton of life back. We'll just keep it in here. Gix's Command is a unique flex. It can either scoop up a bunch of creatures with power 2 or less. I can return 2 creatures from my river to hand. I could force my opponents to sack the highest power creature they control. I can put 2 counters on 1 creature and give it lifelink till end of turn. So it kind of does a little bit of everything that I want to do. I like flexibility in a card. Empress Galena. I might take this out because it's just a little too slow. Stealing people's commanders is really debilitative, and based on a game that I saw fairly recently is people don't run enough of removal in Commander, so it makes me kind of want to try it out. The fact that I have to wait for it to come around, yeah, we'll just cut it. I don't want to wait. Devastation Tide, it has a miracle cost of bouncing everything. I think I might just cut this though, because I have all the board wipes I could possibly need, and all of them are quite good. I think I need to be a little more picky with my board wipes. I think I want things that bounce stuff and or dodge killing my own commander or punish token strategies. So Crux of Fate's probably have to come out. I'm going to probably be drawing a lot of cards, so I'm not going to be able to really take advantage of this miracle cost because it only triggers on the first card that you draw, and I also have to follow the timing restriction as a sorcery, so if I end up drawing on someone else's turn, I can't use this. So the miracle parts aren't that great. Yahenni's Expertise, it's a low board wipe, but my commander dodges it, so we'll keep it in here. Whelming Wave is efficiently costed. I rarely see people playing Krakens, Leviathans, Octopuses, and Serpents. So it might be worth me keeping. The only thing that kind of sucks is it doesn't bounce everything, and I guess Coastal Breach kind of fulfills this much better. I think I'll cut Whelming Wave just because it doesn't hit non-land permanents. I like this card at first glance. The only thing that sucks is I'm replacing people's creatures with more creatures.
We can't have that.
I think we could do better. We'll cut the phasing of Zephyr. Raz Chupacabra is a body that messes with someone's board. Notion Thief, messing with draw and messing with tutoring is the most impactful because both of those win games. Next time you build a deck, I highly recommend you focus on things that do that kind of stuff. 65 cents for an A-lister. It's a heck of a deal. It's also got flash, so you could really screw people over. Greed is card advantage. really affordable card advantage. Godstrel Kefnet, this is a resilient creature that people can't really deal with, and it's a 4/5 body with flying. It lets me cast copies of instants and sorceries off the top of my library. Just seems like a no-brainer for this kind of deck. Urtai Resurrected, at the cost of giving someone a card, I get to counter something or destroy something, and I've had a lot of experiences against Urtai, and I'm like, man, I wish I had one of those in my deck, and now I get to play it for myself. Pretty excited to try this out. Engulf the Shore is a situational board wipe. We'll just get rid of it. Ashiok, I mess with tutoring, and I exile people's graveyards. That's another hate bear, exiling people's graveyards. Ashiok's the best because you get a very dense card. We're going to keep that in here. Dead of Winter, I'm going to be playing a lot of Snowlands. For the efficient cost, I think this might be worth playing, but I have a lot of board wipes already. I think I should probably give up Dead of Winter. Since it's also situational, things might be too big for this to kill stuff anyways. Fall from Favor, this Monarch card that I'm going to be running. It's really debilitating because the person that I put this on, or the creature controller, has to get the monarchy back in order to untap their creature. So even if I lose the monarchy and one of the other two opponents gets it, that particular player can't untap that creature. And then they have to manage to hold it for an entire revolution of the table. That's likely not going to happen. So you should just expect people to never untap with this thing on their creature. So I need some way to keep my life total nice and healthy, and it makes my commander threatening, which is why Loxodon Warhammer's in here. Orbit Opportunist. It's a body that draws me cards. Narset messes with people's draws and lets me find more non-creature spells, and I'm running a lot. Nighthawk Scavenger. It gets really big really fast, and it has lifelink and evasion. Everything you want. Phyrexian Arena for more draw. It's very important in a control deck to have more cards than everybody else. Normally I don't play these kinds of effects because they're a little outdated, but since I'm on a budget, works just fine. Royal Assassin. Now this is a classic. It dissuades people from attacking you because most creatures don't have vigilance, and you just tap in response to kill something. Or you could like use it to make deals like, hey, if you attack someone else with that creature, I won't blow it up. I like bargaining with people where I just in a win-win scenario because it forces people to kill my opponents faster.
It's not a bribe.
Of course it's a bribe.
Thing the Ice makes sense. It blocks a lot of stuff, and eventually I can bounce everyone's things back to their hand. Sig, I like this card because if someone, casts two things to be drained by my Talion, then I get to draw an additional card. So technically I would draw 3 if I have both in play. Seems like a fun thing to do. And 3 toughness kind of staves off a lot of chip damage people might try and get on me. Runechanter's Pike. It gives my equipped creature first strike and +X+0, where X is the number instants and sorceries in my graveyard. I should have a lot, so it makes my commander extremely threatening, and I could finish people off with my commander. I imagine people don't want to use the removal on my commander because I could care less if it lives or dies. I have a perfectly functional deck without it. It might just fly under the radar because I don't think people really care about situational card advantage and drain effects until they're on the verge of death. And I think Runechanter's Pike would make it so people think twice about letting me keep my commander. But at that point, people will probably be out of resources to interact with me. Glamdring does the same thing as Runechanter's Pike, only it's slightly better. Lets me recast instants and sorceries from my graveyard and exiles them. So that's a little fun. It just costs 1 extra to equip. Ghostly Pilfer, that's one of my pet picks. I think people don't give this the credit it deserves. Every time I play this card, I net 3+ cards off of it, just because casting things from exile happens way more than people think it does. Like, at least your commander. So I should see at least 3 cards from just that alone. And then there's cascade triggers, and then there's all kinds of impulse effects out there. Ghostly Pilfer is pretty awesome. And then if I want to, I could discard a card, make it so it can't be blocked, and then when I untap him, I could pay 2 to draw a card that way. Sometimes I'll have excess lands, and I'll just do that all the time. Finale of Eternity, it has like its early game applications and its late game applications. Reanimating everything in my graveyard seems fun. If I pay 10 or more. Most of the time, it just hits 3 cheap things. I might just cut it because, I don't know, it's a little inefficient if I'm not going for that 10 mana. Extraordinary Journey. Does the same thing as Ghostly Pilfer, just slightly worse because I'm limited to just 1 card. I'm probably never going to be paying X is anything but 0 because I just want to throw this out there for 2 mana and see what happens. At its minimal, he'll be drawing cards off people's commanders. Displacement Wave, it doesn't hit everything. I already have more than enough board wipes, so we'll cut that. Black Blade Reforge, another thing that makes my commander threatening. Blood Chief Ascension, this used to be a $20 card and it got reprinted in Commander Masters. So I'm really excited to play this. Its counter requirement is easy because whenever someone loses 2 life, I get to put a counter on it. Once it has 3, it's online. Should be really easy with your commander. It drains your opponents for life and gains you life whenever a card hits their graveyard. Seems perfect in a control deck. A Wizard class is interesting because hand size, draws cards, and then whenever I draw a card to put a counter on something, i.e. I could throw it on my commander and make it threatening. So it's a very dense card. As good as this is, in my experience, this thing just draws a lot of hate and it has weak stats. And I'm probably not going to be blocking with it. It also ties up my mana for 4. I'm just going to cut it. It's not as good as people give it credit for. If I was playing Storm, I'd play it, but I'm not in Storm. I'm playing a traditional control deck. I'm thinking about cutting Baral's expertise. Just might not be good enough when I have 3 opponents. If it's not quite good enough, it's probably got to go. Maybe Magic Mirror has to go. I've always wanted to play it, which is the bummer. This always happens where I have to make cuts, and like if I draw this in the early game, it's a dead card in my hand. So sorry, Magic Mirror.
Damn budget cut.
Maybe I need to be more picky with my board wipes, particularly things that kill my commander. Dominating Wheel gets a little more situational. Like if I am dealing with one aggro deck and everyone's playing a bunch of mid-range stuff, I might not have things to steal with this. Same with Reigns of Power. It's also one of those things where I haven't played it in a while and I want to see if it's still as good as it used to be. Maybe I get rid of this because it's situational. At its worst, it only hits 1 non-black creature. At its best, it hits 2. The double black is also kind of weird. Yeah, I'll just get rid of the taxing part. Might cut Reckless Spite for the same reason I cut Malicious Affliction. Can only hit non-black creatures. Maybe get rid of Aetherize. You're going to be taking turns beating on me. Do I need Gilded Lotus? It was just a quality of life kind of a thing. I think I have to take away conditional removal, like Fatal Push and Tragic Slip. Most of the time, this just steals Soul Rings. I think if I'm paying anything beyond 3, this gets really ridiculous. Paying 4 mana to steal like a Talisman, not a good rate. I might have to cut Court of Ambition since it doesn't affect the board. Messes with people's life and cards, but like the only time they would choose to discard cards and be interacted with that way is if their life totals are already low. So I probably have to give this up. This might be too expensive to just naturally cast. And by the time I get there, people will already be pretty SOL. Yeah, it's probably unnecessary. And I don't have ways to cheat them out. Maybe I should cut Future Sight for the Reality Chip because it's a body that can block too. And it doesn't reveal the top of my library. Let's put that in here instead. It just does a little bit more work and it's cheaper to play. I might cut this. It's a little situational. And if I draw it in the early game, it's a dead card. I mean, I can make the dead card argument about anything beyond like 4 mana. I really need a lot of mana to take full advantage of this. We want incremental value. We don't need a haymaker. We just need to inch out in front of our opponents over and over and over again until they can't play anymore. Maybe this is the moment where I do have to shave off things from the top that are just too expensive. I want to use it the turn I have in my hand, so sorry, Sphinx. Probably gonna give up on these two. There's just more mana efficient ways of doing what I want them to do. Maybe I get rid of these damage pieces, like Curiosity kind of effects, because I feel like I'll be using Talion to block a lot of the time. Yeah, let's do that. This way, if my commander dies, I don't get 2 for 1. There you have it. I hope you all enjoyed. I'm really excited to play this. I'd like to remind everybody that you could go to my channel, go to the community section, and vote on what deck I play next. I think after I play this one and feature on the channel, I'm going to be next playing Agatha, the Cauldron chick. And be doing a lot of X shenanigans. So I hope you all had a great time. Have a good one.
I am the Lord.